Hello, I'm Michael Topham, technical writer for digital photo, and welcome to this month's masterclass video lesson. In this first of two videos, we're going to study the basics of feathering in Photoshop and see how different feather radius values affect the softness of our selection edges. We're going to start off by creating a very simple document with a number of red squares on it to show you the difference between a non-feathered selection and selections that have been feathered with different feather radius values. Once this A3 document has been made, it's a useful guide to print out and have beside your computer. You'll then know straight away which feather radius value to use in the future, and this will also prevent you from creating any sharp selection edges. Remember, when we're making adjustments, such as using levels or curves, we want them to blend in seamlessly, and this is all made possible by applying a feather to our selections. Towards the end of this video, we'll also see how we can create a graduated selection using a large feather radius. This simple but effective technique only takes a few seconds to do, but it remains an excellent subtle way of presenting your pics before framing them, printing them, or uploading them onto your website. To start off then, let's take a look at some different feather radiuses to visually see the differences between a small and a large feathered selection. Firstly, load up the file guidelines.jpg from the Start Images folder on the CD and just click on Open and you'll see it there on your screen. Now you may think that this is just a blank document, but actually it's got some guidelines on there ready for you to use. So just hold down the Control key and then hit the semicolon key at the same time, and that will show all the guidelines on this document. Move across into the toolbox and pick out the rectangular marquee tool before moving up into the options bar and making sure you're selected on New Selection, and make sure the feather is set to 0 pixels for the time being. Draw out your first square selection in the top left of this document, and once you can see the marching ants like mine on my screen, you can just go up to Edit and then down to Fill, and the keyboard shortcut for this is Shift plus F5. Click on the Contents drop-down arrow before clicking on Color to load up the Choose a Color dialog box. Go for a bright red color and then hit OK, and then hit OK once more to fill the selection with our color. To remove those marching ants from around the outside of our color square, hit Ctrl and D. Under closer inspection, we can see that without a feather, this red square has very sharp edges to it. So let's now smooth the next square's edges with a 10 pixeled feather radius. Use the rectangular marquee tool again from the toolbox to draw out the next square selection alongside the first. The edges of this second selection are still currently sharp, so to soften them we go up to Select, down to Modify, across and then down to Feather, and the keyboard shortcut for this is Alt plus Control plus D. Type in a feather radius of 10 pixels before hitting OK. With our selection feathered, we can hit the Fill shortcut, which is Shift and F5 to load up the Fill dialog box. Just hit Enter or just click on OK and you'll notice how our selection has been filled with the previous colour. Hit Ctrl and D just to deselect those marching ants, and then hit Ctrl and the semicolon key together to hide the guidelines. It's now clear to see how the 10 pixeled feather radius that we've applied to our second selection has helped soften our selection edges, so they're now not as sharp as the first square where we used no feather at all. You can now hit Ctrl and the semicolon key again together to reveal the guidelines, and repeat the same process for different feather radius values up to 110. This is going to take me a few minutes to do, so I'll rejoin you very shortly. And this is my final document with the red squares feathered up to a 110 feather radius. If you don't fancy creating this document for yourself, we've put it into the Start Images folder ready for you to study and print off for future reference. You'll find it under the file name featherradius.jpg. Studying these different feather radiuses tells us that the lower the feather value, the harder the selection edge, and the higher the feather radius value, the softer the selection edge becomes. But we don't always require a high feather radius amount to diminish the sharpness of a selection outline, and usually a value of around 30 to 40 pixels is more than ample for most adjustments. Occasions do arise though when a large feather radius is preferred. This is useful when we're looking to present our pics and require a shallow drop-off between the edge of the image and the new document that we want to lay out the image onto. Head back into the Start Images folder on the CD and find the wedding photograph confetti.jpg, and then just load this up into Photoshop. For this example, I'm looking to create a gradual feathered selection in the shape of a circle. So head across into the toolbox and hold down on the rectangular marquee tool and move down one to the elliptical marquee tool and select that. In the options bar, select New Selection and keep the feather set to 0 pixels, as we're going to add the feather once the selection has been made. Draw out a circled selection, making sure that the bride, the groom and the confetti are all within the selection. If you need to move the selection, just hold down inside the selection and drag it to its new position. When you're happy with the placement of your selection, hit the feather selection shortcut, which is Ctrl Alt and D, and this will load up the feather selection dialog box. Use a high feather radius amount of 100 pixels and then hit OK. We're going to eventually paste this copied feathered selection into a new document, but first we need to make our new document, so just head up to File and then down to New. Make sure that you choose Custom underneath the preset, and you'll find that from the bottom of the list, and then input a width of 3037 pixels and a height of 2456 pixels. Also check your resolution is set to 300 and the background contents is set to white, before hitting OK to create your new document. To paste our soft selection edged image into our new document, we can either go up to Edit and then down to Paste, or we can hit the keyboard shortcut, which is Ctrl+V. We can now just go back to our original confetti image and just close this down as we're finished with it, and we don't need to save the changes, and that will bring us back to our new document. The large feather radius that we used with our selection in the wedding photograph confetti.jpg has helped create a smooth blend between the image and our new document. As a result, it looks a lot more effective and presentable than if we'd used a harder and lower valued feather radius. So having studied a number of feather radius amounts and used feathering to soften our selection edges in the Start Image confetti.jpg, we're ready to move on and explore feathering in further detail in the next video. In the second masterclass video, we'll be using a number of different feather radius amounts and study how we can visually see how the feathering affects our selection edges by using Photoshop's Refine Edge command, which is available for both CS3 and CS4 users. Thanks for watching this first masterclass feathering video, and I'll speak to you very shortly in the next video. Bye for now.